Sure, I think it's a werewolf, Constable Neary says. He speaks too loudly, maybe accidentally. More like accidentally on purpose. And all conversation in Stan's barber shop comes to a halt. It is going on just past August, the hottest August anyone can remember in Tarker's Mills for years. And tonight, the moon will be just one day past full. So the town holds its breath, waiting. Constable Neary surveys his audience, and then goes on from his place in Stan Peckley's middle barber chair, speaking weightily, speaking judically, speaking psychologically, all from the depths of his high school education. Neary is a big, beefy man, and in high school he mostly made touchdowns for Tarker's Mills Tigers. His classwork earned him some C's and not a few D's. These are guys, he tells them. They're kind of like two people. Kind of like split personalities, you know? They are what I'd call fucking schizos. He pauses to appreciate the respectful silence which greets this, and then goes on. Now this guy, I think he's like that. I don't think he knows what he's doing when the moon gets full, and he goes out and kills somebody. He could be anybody. A teller at the bank, a gas jockey at one of the stations out on Town Road. Maybe even someone right here now. In the sense of being an animal inside and looking perfectly normal outside, yeah, you bet. But if you mean, do I think there's a guy who sprouts hair and howls at the moon? No, that shit's for kids. What about the Coslaw boy, Neary? Stan says, continuing to work carefully around the roll of fat at the base of Neary's neck. His long, sharp scissors go snip, snip, snip. Just proves what I said. Neary responds with some exasperation. That shit's for kids. In truth, he feels exasperated about what's happened with Marty Coslaw. Here, in this boy, is the first eyeball witness to the freak that's killed 6 people in this town, including Neary's good friend Alfie Knopfeller. And is he allowed to interview the boy? No. Does he even know where the boy is? No. He's had to make do with a disposition furnished to him by the state police, and he had to bow and scrape and just about beg to get that much. All because he's a small-town constable, what the state police think of as a kitty cop, not able to tie his own shoes. All because he doesn't have one of their numfuck smoky bear hats. And the disposition. He might as well have used it to wipe his ass with. According to the Coslaw kid, this beast stood about 7 feet tall, was naked, was covered with dark hair all over his body. He had big teeth and green eyes and smelled like a load of panther shit. He had claws, but the claws looked like hands. Maybe, Annie Franklin says from his place in a row of chairs along the wall. Maybe it's some kind of disguise this fella puts on. Like a mask and all, you know. I don't believe it, Harry says emphatically, and nods his head to emphasize the point. Stan has to draw his scissors back in a hurry to avoid putting one of his blades into that beefy roll of fat at the back of Neary's neck. No, sir. I don't believe it. He had heard a lot of these werewolf stories at school before it closed for the scummer. He admitted as much, and then he didn't have nothing to do but sit there in that chair of his and think about it. Work it over in his mind. It's all psycho-fucking logical, you see. Why, if it'd been you, I'd come out of the bushes by the light of the moon. He would have thought you was a wolf, Kenny. Kenny laughs a little uneasily. Nope, Kenny says gloomily. Kid's testimony is just no damn good tall. In his disgust and disappointment over the disposition taken from Marty Coslaw at the home of Marty's aunt and uncle in Stowe, Constable Neary has also overlooked this line. 4 of them went off at the sides of his face. I guess you call it a face. All at once. And I guess maybe it put his eye out. His left eye. If Neary had chewed this over in his mind, and he hadn't, he would have laughed even more contemptuously, because in that hot, still August of 1984, there was only one townsperson sporting an eye patch. It was simply impossible to think of that person, of all persons, being the killer. Neary would have believed his mother the killer before he would have believed that. There's only one thing that'll solve this case, Neary says, jabbing his finger at the 4 or 5 men sitting against the wall and waiting for their Saturday morning haircuts. And that's good police work. And I intend to be the guy who does it. Those state smokies are going to be laughing on the other side of their faces when I bring the guy in. Neri's face turns dreamy. Anyone, he says. Bank teller, ass jockey, some guy you drink with down there at the bar. But good police work will solve it. You mark my words. Constable Lander Neri's good police work comes to an end that night when a hairy, moon-silvered arm reaches through the open window of his Dodge pickup as he sits parked at the crossing point of two dirt roads out in West Tarker's Mills. There's a low, snorting grunt and a wild, terrifying smell, like something you would smell in the lion house of a zoo. His head is snapped around and he stares into one green eye. He sees the fur, the black, damp-looking snout, and when the snout wrinkles back, he sees the teeth. The beast claws at him, almost playfully, and one of his cheeks is ripped away in a flap, exposing his teeth on the right side. Blood spouts everywhere. You can feel it running down over the shoulder of his shirt, sinking in warmly. He screams out of his mind and out of his cheek. Over the beast's working shoulder, he can see the moon flooding down white light. He forgets all about his 30-30 and the 45 strapped on his belt. He forgets all about how this thing is psycho-fucking-logical. He forgets all about good police work. Instead, his mind fixes on something Kenny Franklin said in the barber shop that morning. Maybe it's some kind of disguise this feller puts on. A mask and all, you know. And so, as the werewolf reaches for Neri's throat, Neri reaches for its face, grabs double handfuls of coarse, wiry fur and pulls, hoping madly that the mask will shift and then pull off. There will be a snap of an elastic, a liquid ripping sound of latex, and he will see the killer. But nothing happens. Nothing except a roar of pain and rage from the beast. It swipes at him with one clawed hand. Yes, he can see it is a hand, however hideously misshapen. A hand. The boy was right. And lays his throat wide open. Blood jets over the truck's windshield and dashboard. It dripped into the bottle of bush that has been sitting tilted against Constable Neri's crotch. The werewolf's other hand snags in Neri's freshly cut hair and yanks him out of the Dodge pickup's cab. It howls once in triumph, and then it buries its face and snout in Neri's neck. It feeds while the beer gurgles out of the spilled bottle and foams on the floor by the truck's brake and clutch pedals. So much for psychology. So much for good police work.